Cześć, 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 witam was wszystkich, tutaj Frodo, witajcie w kolejnym odcinku z naszych zmagań z przygodówką Sherlock Holmes i tajemnica srebrnego kolczyka. Tutaj ostatnio sobie zakończyłem sobie przy tej zagadce i tak sobie, słuchajcie, siedzę, herbatkę sobie zrobiłem i grzebię, bo czytam te wszystkie notatki, które tak naprawdę na poprzednim odcinku, na nagraniu nie przeczytałem ich, no bo tylko tak tyle 3 po 3, nie? No to jednak trzeba się tutaj w te notatki, słuchajcie, bardzo skupić i wyszukać odpowiednią odpowiedź, bo tutaj sobie zostawiłem. Czy przywódca zbirów, którzy napadli na Holmesa, był bezpośrednio powiązany ze sprawą? I tutaj tak, no to akurat zrobiłem w poprzednim odcinku, to myślę, że to będzie, to zostawiam. Myślę, że tak. Czy można powiedzieć, że osoba, która zabiła Simona, sprawnie posługuje się bronią? I tutaj też, bo on mówił o tym, to jest nawet gdzieś ta rozmowa, możemy sobie ją zobaczyć, że ktoś oddał tylko jeden strzał w serce, więc myślę, że dobrze się posługiwał, wiedział co robi, nie? Czy ruiny w pobliżu opactwa Richmond są często odwiedzane przez włóczęgów? Tak, i o tym mówił też braciszek. To akurat było proste. Tutaj, wiecie co, zastanawiam się nad tymi dwoma, ale mam jeszcze jedną taką teorię, ale to możemy zaraz jeszcze zobaczyć, która przejdzie. Czy to możliwe, że charakter pisma na notatce znalezionej w ruinach jest taki sam jak na jednym z poprzednich dokumentów? I tutaj zrobię tak i zobaczcie, nie wiem, macie wrażenie, że to i to jest to samo? Musisz zapłacić. Na przykład te Z, ja tak patrzę na Z. Malwin, musisz na przykład, musisz. Takie M. Takie samo M jak tu. Zapłacić. Z na przykład jest identyczne. Nie? Także zostawiłem te dwie groźby, ale jeszcze zastanawiam się nad jedną notatką, a mianowicie tym listem od alkoholika. Też jest bardzo podobne to. Nie? No. Ale zostawiłem na razie tylko te dwie groźby. Natomiast tutaj, no tutaj to było ciężko mi to znaleźć, dlatego że musiałem przeczytać no tutaj te wszystkie notatki, tak jak wspominałem. Czy łatwo jest emerytowanemu angielskiemu oficerowi znaleźć pracę w roli naczelnika więzienia za granicą? I tutaj no jest taka mała wzmianka tutaj w tej przepaści. Oni tutaj budowali ten most, czyli dostali to zlecenie w tej dżungli. Tam trochę nie poszło tak fajnie, jak oni by to chcieli. O, tutaj, na początku drugiego miesiąca oficerowi dowodzącemu batalionami poproszono o przydzielenie mu roli nadzorcy, niezależnie od trudów związanych z tym zadaniem. No, także tylko jest taka tutaj zmianka. Ewentualnie tutaj, jak są na przykład zwolnionym ze służby oficerom, jako że nie ma lepszego kierownika, aniżeli był brytyjski oficer. Aha, i tutaj jednak wojskowi nie pozwolili mu opuścić służby, więc nie wiem, czy to chodzi o emeryta jakiegoś, nie? Takie tutaj mam, że tak powiem, przypuszczenia. No ale można zrobić, że tak. Tu się zastanawiam nad tymi dwoma. To na pewno, to na pewno. No i to jest ok. Dobra, zobaczymy.
It is simplicity
Super,
itself, Watson.
dobra, udało
We
się.
have answered all the questions.
Spoko. Nie było tak źle. No ale musiałem jednak, wiecie co, tutaj sobie to wszystko poczytać. Nie?
Hello, Watson.
Good morning, Lestrade. You are an early riser.
Good morning, Lestrade. You look really tired. You must have had a lengthy meeting with the minister.
But hold on. How on earth could you know that, Holmes?
I can read you like an open book.
Ten jak zwykle, kuźwa, wszystko wyczytał.
I jest with you, gentlemen.
It's not the proper time for jesting, Holmes. But upon my word, how did you find out about the minister? I was assured that only 3 or 4 persons at most had knowledge of this meeting.
Oh, I would rather withhold my explanation.
So you must be aware of the subject of the meeting.
Indeed, but Dr. Watson knows nothing of these events.
Well, our incorruptible yet ever practical minister shared the thoughts of the Chancellor of the Exchequer with me. They've decided that it would be most imprudent, given the crisis we're under, for a young lady barely 18 years of age to take control over one of the country's 3 biggest building enterprises.
I begin to understand, but
According to the minister, despite his bad habits due to the lack of consideration for his partner, Grimble is the only individual that the council has faith in to reverse the current state of the Bromsby holdings. It was further explained to me that if there is a choice to make in the direction of my investigation, and lacking any new evidence to the contrary, I must take these concerns into account.
this is outrageous.
And you, Lestrade, what are your personal thoughts on the matter?
I really can't say, Holmes. The prospect offered by Grimble seems so attractive. He had credible motive to murder Bromsby and then foul it. In addition, he was the only individual with apparent access to the shed at the cement factory where we discovered the corpse of his presumed accomplice. However, the only gadfly to this theory is his statement to Dr. Watson when he clearly renounced all rights of succession.
That is an item of singular curiosity.
It is difficult for me to believe that a man who could plan and execute 2 or 3 murders with such cool presence of mind would give up an opportunity of this magnitude so easily. I also have spent sufficient time at Sherringford Hall to have a high opinion of Lieutenant Harrington.
I agree with you. This young man, by all accounts, has an unimpeachable character.
I have no evidence to cast doubt on the truthfulness of his testimony. We reconstructed the crime, and it was evident from where he stood he could easily see Miss Bromsby despite the crowd. Really, Holmes, I'm not a man who would hand over an innocent girl to the executioner, even should it cost me my career.
I am pleased to hear you say this, Lestrade. By the way, Lestrade, have you any knowledge of the place known as Aston's Theatre?
Is it that shabby theatre that lies near the bank of the Thames?
Yes, several weeks ago it was acquired by the Fairfax Theatre Company. Their international tour appears to have been most successful, as they are set to open their new play in a week. Dwight Richards happens to be their director.
You mean the author of the threatening letter that we found on Bromsby's desk? I must admit, I thought the letter to be of small consequence. After all, it involved a matter from so long ago.
Sometimes old wounds are the most painful. In fact, we are leaving for Aston's right now. I know that you are quite busy, but if you feel like joining us, meet us at noon.
A, idziemy do tego teatru. Powiem wam, no ta rozmowa taka nawet, wiecie co? Bo tak się zastanawiam, czy tutaj czasem nie będzie tak, że jakby mordercą nie jest jedna osoba, no bo każdy z nich, prawda, miał jakieś zatarczki z tymi osobami, które zostały zamordowane. To nie było tak, że bezpośrednio ta jedna osoba... Obstawiam na razie jednego, to tego takiego, właśnie on tutaj, ten policjant wspomniał, że był katem i jakby wykorzystał tą lawinię, czyli tą dziewczynę do tego, żeby właśnie zabić tego ojca, czyli tego na samym początku, tą ofiarę, nie Bromsbiego. Bo jakiś taki, on jest podejrzany. Ja mam wrażenie, że tutaj z nim jest coś nie tak. No ale jakby reszta, no niekoniecznie, powiem wam.
This might be interesting.
Jezu, na przykład, wiecie co, nie, teatr, wyjątkowa światowa premiera, włóczęga i rozpusta. Dwight Richard. Przeczytałem to ledwo co. Aha, tutaj mogę, że wyjść. No nie chcę wychodzić. No dobra, chodźcie do tego teatru, nic tutaj nie, co będziemy tutaj. Pogadać nie mogę z Watsonem.
Aston's Theatre. Here we are.
Dobra, jest tu jakiś cieć. No nic, zagadamy, co będziemy tak. Halo? Czekajcie, bo... O.
We are not open to the public yet, gentlemen. Oh, bless my soul. I can hardly believe my eyes. It is the young Sherlock Holmes, isn't it?
Watson, allow me to present Philotomy Kirby, who in his day was one of the last great hopes of the popular stage. He also took great pains to advance my comprehension of the many subtleties of the theatrical arts.
So he can still prattle away. Don't listen to him. This is the most talented student I've ever met, upon my word, as an actor. But those days are past. So, am I speaking to the former actor or the world-renowned detective today?
Dobra, możemy pogadać. Widzę, że tu Watson go zna. Nie, Holmes, przepraszam.
Tell me, what do you know about the Fairfax Theatre troupe?
2 months ago, they returned from an international tour. Richards, their director, had managed to secure the necessary funds to buy back Aston's. It seems he had finally resolved his troubles.
Okej, kłopoty, a jakie
He was
miał?
in some kind of trouble.
Oh, it's always the same with those tours abroad. Your star actress marries an emir. Another time the entire troupe has their luggage stolen. Anything is possible, and whatever occurs is usually nothing good. But who would have imagined such a tragedy?
What tragedy?
Their last tour started about 3 years ago. At that time, the troupe was housed at the Fairfax Theatre. But a series of failures forced the owners to sell it at a substantial loss. The owners were 3 individuals: Dwight Richards, their current director, Miss Davenport, their star actress and the mistress of Richards, and lastly, a young actor, costumier, make-up man called Jeffries. They decided, after the sale, to launch an international tour in order to raise funds.
Their success was assured?
Yes, the fame of English theatre is worldwide. During their travels, Jeffries and Miss Davenport developed a close relationship, which was much to the regret of the hot-headed Richards. He is a gypsy by birth. No one can be more possessive and quick-tempered than a gypsy.
Pray continue.
In short, a dark tragedy occurred in a village in Latin America, located not far from the Amazon. One evening, after their performance, someone noticed that Miss Davenport and Jeffries had gone missing. The local authorities were notified, and the alarm was raised.
Okej. A co z nim?
And Richards?
Richards was implicated in some manner, it seems to me. However, there was no proof of his involvement, and no bodies were ever found.
Okej.
What a strange case.
If you need more details, you should ask the actors. As you may observe, they are rarely able to hold their tongues.
No dobra, to pogadamy z nim.
I will see you later, Kirby.
Yes, it was good seeing you again.
A dobra, to możemy pójść. Tu jest ktoś, poczekajcie, porozmawiamy.
Hello, young man. What are you looking at?
Oh, I'm sorry. You startled me. I'm looking at her. Her. Are you from the press? Of course you are. You must be here to interview her. Oh, the play is wonderful, and Miss Caroline will surely shine. If only my father could have seen this day.
Ojciec?
Your father?
Kto jest twoim
Yes,
ojcem?
I am Bruce Aston, and my father was Clyde Aston, the former owner of the theatre.
A, okej.
It may have fallen into some disrepair, but during its time it was well loved by so many. A host of young actors debuted on that venerated stage. Why, it was at this very spot where Mr. Richards first met Miss Davenport.
Ciekawe, o co chodzi właśnie z tym zaginięciem tej pary, nie?
Have you ever heard of the Fairfax Theatre?
It is the theatre which was demolished. It seems to me that it had been owned by Mr. Richards together with Miss Davenport
Może był
and a friend
zazdrosny.
of theirs. They left on an extended tour, but I think it went badly for them. After his return, Mr. Richards bought the theatre back from the bank, and I do hope his good fortune will continue.
Well, we can hope.
With the talented Miss Caroline, I think anything is possible. And the building is still solid and comfortable. Though the bank took over the theatre, they left the keys. From time to time, I would do what I could to tidy up a bit or see to a broken window.
Okej.
Are you a part of the troupe?
Yes. When Mr. Richards noticed how I had worked to keep the place up, he hired me. I helped Mr. Kirby a little, and also Mr. Trumpet backstage.
Goodbye, young man.
Goodbye, sir.
Dobra, tu są aktorzy, też pogadamy.
Excuse me, may I ask you some questions?
Naturally, I'm listening to you.
Okej.
You are rehearsing at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, we are in rehearsal for the play we are to perform at the month end. Are you critics or reporters? As you know, we just came back from an extended tour. We were a triumph everywhere we performed.
Bardzo zmanierowany jest.
Tell us about this international tour.
We performed in France, in Switzerland, and even for an Arab prince. We were met with acclaim at every stop. If tragedy had not occurred, we were to appear next in New York. But fate had other plans for us.
Jaka
What
tragedia?
sort of tragedy?
Oh, surely you must have heard about it. All because of those in our company who assumed the right to reveal every distasteful and intimate detail of a most tragic event. Anything to gain publicity for themselves. It is positively scandalous. But even a professional actor such as myself respects the privileges of the press and
Okay.
the public's right to know.
Your sensitivity honours you.
Please continue your story.
The events took place in a most
Miałem to
sordid
powiedzieć.
place in Brazil named Guacamole or Babiamo or something like that. I still can't stop asking myself what we were doing there in the first place. But to be brief, our talented costumier, Mr. Jeffries, had been having a tete-a-tete with the beautiful Miss Davenport. Unfortunately, she was still very much the mistress of our director,
No, czyli był za...
Mr. Richards.
Czyli pan Richard był po prostu zazdrosny.
Was unbearable.
Really?
In the view of a professional, they were the worst hours of my life. Miss Davenport was spending the whole day closeted in her room. Mr. Jeffries trembled so uncontrollably that he was unable to do our makeup. Mr. Richards stepped in, and I must say he was a pitiful substitute. May you never be so ill-fortuned as to have your face in his large, hairy hands.
And then?
Our first performance in that town was naturally well received. That very night, a tragedy took place. Mr. Jeffries and Miss Davenport went missing not long after the performance ended. It was impossible to find them. Then we heard that Mr. Richards was arrested on suspicion of murder regarding Miss Davenport and Mr. Jeffries. We were outraged and most indignant. Some entertained thoughts that we would never leave that god-forsaken place.
How was the matter resolved?
Fortunately for Mr. Richards and all of us, the prison warden and local chief of police was an Englishman. Lacking direct evidence or even a corpse, the accusations against Mr. Richards could not stand. He was set free on the spot. I think that had it not been for the intervention of that young expatriate, we might have been stranded in that Amazonian swamp for all eternity.
No to... No to wcale Richard nie musiał być, to mógł
Well,
być...
thank you for your assistance.
That's all right. Don't hesitate to seek my help.
A to mógłby być nawet ten, który właśnie był tym tam na emeryturze, w sensie ten taki właśnie kapitan. Ale nie wiem, który. Dobra, jeszcze chwilę. Bo na pewno nie ten
Don't
młody.
listen to that milk toast. He gets positively weak in the knees over redheads. A policeman is just a policeman. That's it. If Richards isn't in jail, it's only because he had nothing to do there.
We were talking about the tragedy which occurred during your previous tour, and...
You aren't the press, are you? No. In my opinion, you seem more like policemen. Well, listen closely, inspectors. Miss Davenport was nothing more than an aging woman who adored seeing all the men at her feet.
What? Don't you mean...
She toyed with both Richards and Jeffreys like two little puppets. Dwight Richards is quick-tempered, but he wouldn't harm a hair on her head. And if you are eager to be so helpful, please, find my red-haired wig.
We must
Perukę?
continue our investigation.
Of course, of course.
A tam wiele nam nie pomogła. Tu jest jeszcze jedna dziewczyna, też aktoreczka jakaś.
Hello, miss. I'm sorry for disturbing you.
Oh, you are welcome.
Are you rehearsing the new play?
Yes, we are hard at work. Excuse me, did I just hear Mr. Kirby calling you Holmes? Is it really possible that you were the great detective, Sherlock Holmes, and you were Dr. Watson?
I'm investigating the facts of the terrible events that occurred during the company's last tour.
Oh, I see. You were interested in that case. It's still a complete mystery, even for those who were there.
Tell us about Miss Davenport.
She was fabulous and positively mesmerised men. She confessed to me that she had been indiscreet with our costumier, Jeffreys. She had left Richards before, but she always came back to him. She said he understood her completely without her even saying a word.
Until that last time.
Forgive an admiring expert, but your earring is absolutely magnificent.
Oh, that was a gift from Veronica. She got it along with 2 other matching earrings and a small jewel case. She gave me this one, another to Doris, and kept the most beautiful for herself. Veronica insisted on cleansing it herself weekly with a special cleanser. It was remarkable and kept the earring all sparkling like stars. When I saw her last, Veronica was wearing her earring. She never parted with it.
A, czyli my mamy ten kolczyk.
Where can we find Doris?
She must be in her dressing room.
Goodbye, miss, and thanks.
You're welcome, Mr. Holmes.
No dobra. Tutaj mamy przejście, chyba że jeszcze, bo jeszcze z tej strony widziałem jakieś drzwi, czy nie? Nie, tu nie pójdziemy po prostu. Okej, no to słuchajcie tu. O tu. Pogadali. Co ona zasnęła? Dobra, trzeba ją obudzić, słuchajcie. No dobra.
Pardon?
Why can people not allow actors their peace and quiet? They walk through here as if it were a
Pijana
common
w 3 dupy.
thoroughfare. Nothing strange about that. They still haven't bothered to change the locks. Anyone can enter at will and abuse me. Me, who in the 50s, I was rather good actually. Did you see me? With the best, me. And they just treat me, and oh.
Are you rehearsing?
Everyone has his own technique. Cheers.
Miss Small told you about your earring. Would you mind showing it to us?
It can't be sold. Do you think that actors have no heart? I would prefer dying of thirst than parting with it. My friend, my best friend Veronica, who I love like my own daughter, she gave it to
Śmieszna.
me. My
Wesoła.
little Veronica. She... Veronica.
Chyba nie pogadamy z nią, słuchajcie.
Do you know what has happened to your friend?
Left. She left with that Jeffreys. Oh, I know what they say. That Richards murdered them both. Why not? He did everything for them. Everything. She was naught but a common flower girl. And that Jeffreys was a mere servant. He made them actors. Yes, actors. Yes.
Dobra jest. Przezabawna, nawet bym powiedział. No, jedyna taka pozytywna osoba w tej grze.
We'd better leave you to your work. I mean,
Nie pogadasz.
I need to concentrate.
Więc tu nie pogadamy, słuchajcie, więcej. Ale zobaczę, czy są tutaj podwójne drzwi. Mamy z tej strony i z tej. Chodźcie, zobaczymy tu. Aha, czyli tutaj możemy troszkę pochodzić. Są pokoje.
Who is it?
Mr. Richards, my name is Sherlock Holmes.
Dobra, czy to jest właściciel ten teatru?
You may put away your knife. Rest assured, I am indeed Sherlock Holmes. Thank you for receiving us, Mr. Richards. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions?
I will answer your questions, Mr. Holmes, only because I have heard about you.
Would you tell me about Sir Bromsby?
I will not lie to you, I hated Bromsby. He is the cause of all my troubles, I swear. I have often dreamed of killing Bromsby with my own 2 hands, but I didn't kill him.
Okej.
Do you know an Asian named Wang Jie?
What would he be doing there? Well, in the days of the Fairfax Theatre, I once employed a Chinese fellow who went by that name. However, I was forced to dismiss him because he was a great deal of trouble, and I've never seen him since that time.
Okej.
You retain several keys from the Fairfax Theatre, don't you?
Well, I don't understand the purpose of your questions, but yes, there were indeed 2 keys for the Fairfax Theatre main door. When the bank took possession, we gave only one of them to Bromsby's assistant. When asked, we lied and said there was only 1 key.
But why?
Well, we kept the other one out of spite. We had thoughts of returning in the night and wreaking havoc, but we had no opportunity, as we left for abroad after the transfer to go on our tour. I suppose the key may have been lost somewhere along our travels.
No my odnaleźliśmy chyba te klucze, z tego co wiem.
About the disappearance of Miss Davenport.
I don't know why you want to talk about it. Does some vile curiosity cause you to torment me in this way?
Thank you, Mr. Richards.
It is nothing, Mr. Holmes.
I should reveal one of my hints.
Kolczyk może.
Oh, this can't be possible. How did you come by this? Dear God, if only someone like yourself had been present that evening.
Please tell us what's happened.
That night, after the performance, I left to stroll alone along the riverbank. The next morning, I had barely returned when I was seized by 2 local policemen and led to a prison cell for interrogation.
Why?
When I got there, an Englishman, the local chief of police, told me that a deserted boat had been discovered along the opposite bank of the river. Inside the boat, I found a star covered with blood. It belonged to Veronica, who
Gwiazdka?
had vanished, along with my
Gwiazdę.
other partner, Jeffries.
Co jest
And
za-
then what happened?
No one could prove my innocence, but they also found no proof of my complicity in these events, nor had they found any bodies.
Ciekawe.
Tell us a little more about your partners.
I had met Jeffries while on tour. He was just a young tramp drunkard. Whatever my feelings were then, I feel no pity for him now. He betrayed me. But it wasn't the same with Veronica. I fear the pain caused by these events will forever haunt me.
Okej. No to
Thank you, Mr. Richards.
It is nothing, Mr. Holmes.
This man is a wonderful actor.
Maybe, Watson. Maybe.
Znaczy, nie sądzę, żeby był mordercą.
Let us see whether we can find other evidence.
Nie wiem, jakieś takie mam wrażenie, że to... Czyli dowody, słuchajcie, czy tutaj nie przejdę, tak? No to dobra. Tutaj stąd przyszliśmy.
What chaos! Through the flying dragons of the Virgin Islands, the land of gargantuan man-eating crabs, love in the heart of the Black Desert. This author seems to be particularly inept.
Okej. Coś zabrałem. Aha. To wspomniał o tym ten aktor jedny właśnie. A to chodzi o rzekę. Mhm. Łowienie. Członkowie plemienia tutaj. Okej. No też muszę to przeczytać. Ja wam tam zostawiam. Tu mamy...
A set of costumes. There are 30 listed.
Pokaż. A nie mam tego. Czemu? No dobra. Czy jeszcze coś tutaj? No to niby to, tylko że on to już czytał, tak? To jest ten taki...
Through the flying dragons of the Virgin Islands, the land of gargantuan man... But I count only 29. Yes, the artillery officer uniform is missing. Love in the heart of the Black Desert. This author seems to be particularly inept.
No to ciekawe, brakuje munduru. Ciekawe, czy ten młodziaszek, którym tak troszkę go podejrzewam, czy on czasem nie zajumał tutaj tego munduru. Dobra, to chyba wszystko, słuchajcie. Nic tutaj chyba więcej nie przykombinujemy. Jeszcze patrzę, czy czasem nie ma tutaj, wiecie, jakichś takich dowodów typu śladów jakichś, nie? Bo tak... Tu nie przejdę, tak? Nie. Nie ma sensu już mu przeszkadzać, prawda?
Leave me alone, I have to work.
A tutaj ona jest w tym gabinecie. No dobra.
I don't know where your wig is.
I cannot take her earring.
No nie, ale słuchajcie, z tą peruką. Właśnie, bo ona chciała tam, ta aktoreczka, perukę, ale tutaj nie widzę akurat rudej. Wszystkie widzę, ale nie rudej. Tu w tym nie mogę. Stąd przyszliśmy, więc chodźcie, jeszcze tu są jedne drzwi.
We are in the backstage area.
No dobra, to tutaj nas jeszcze nie było. Tu jakiś cieć też jest, pogadamy.
May I ask you a few questions?
It all depends on what you're asking.
What are you doing?
My job, my lord. I'm making this jumble look a bit neater.
Could you tell me what happened in Brazil?
Yes, my lord, I was there when it happened. But Mr. Richards takes it very personally if we chat about those times, and I won't risk my position without some consideration, if you get my meaning.
Here's 5 guineas. How's that?
Oh, my lord, you're too kind. I don't really know much of what happened. You see, I was alone at a tavern that night, and I was, as one could say, very fond of the local alcohol. When I returned to our lodgings, I learned that the actress and the costumier had taken to their heels.
And what did you do then?
I made my way to the inn with all haste to learn what they'd taken in their sudden departure. You must understand my position. I was solely responsible for the security of the luggage and troop properties. Can you then imagine my surprise when I saw that nothing was missing? Absolutely nothing. They hadn't even taken their personal items. I can understand that of a man like Jeffries, but it was most unusual for a lady such as Miss
No to na
Veronica.
pewno zostali
So
zamordowani.
the idea came to me that perhaps they hadn't truly left, you see.
Jak nie zabrali, słuchajcie, rzeczy, to na pewno zostali zamordowani.
And what of Dwight Richards?
I learned that Mr. Richards had been seized by the local authorities. It seemed he was under suspicion for the murder of the missing lovers. This was too incredible. And then there's another odd thing that weighs on my mind. When we finally returned to England, Mr. Richards asked me to do him a small personal service. What was strange was that he insisted I keep the matter confidential and not breathe a word of it to anyone.
Ciekawe
What kind
czemu.
of service?
Well, there's a small room with an iron door located above the backstage. It was used to store the stage lights and fireworks. He asked me to help him move all of Miss Veronica's personal belongings to the room. Every little thing, without exception. Her large trunk, her dresses,
Wow.
all of it.
A gdzie ten zamknięty
Where is
pokój?
this room?
The end of the passage. But there is one difficulty. You see, Mr. Richards has the only key to the room's iron door, because only he has a complete set of keys to this building.
No to dużo powiedział.
Goodbye, my friend.
My respects, my lord.
Warto było mu zapłacić, słuchajcie. No, ja niestety klucza nie mam, ale oczywiście, że sobie tam pójdziemy. Kurde, ktoś coś kombinuje. Próbował... Już nie wiem, już miałem mówić, że on nie jest mordercą. A tutaj, wiecie, różnie może być jednak. Dobra, tu chyba możemy wejść na górę.
Closed.
Mhm.
Closed.
Czyli podejrzewam, że będziemy musieli po prostu od niego te klucze jakoś, wiecie, wyskrobać. Ale to zrobimy sobie w następnym odcinku. Tak, no tutaj nie mogę, słuchajcie, przejść ani nic. Tutaj po prostu tylko się mogę cofnąć. Co? Zrobimy sobie to w następnym odcinku? Tak zrobimy. No nic tutaj więcej nie widzę. Cały czas jeszcze też z tą peruką, nie? Czekajcie, bo tu... Tak, i tu wychodzimy tu. No dobra. A to jest ten korytarz. A tu jest już... Tak, ten teatr. Dobra, słuchajcie. Będziemy kminić w następnym odcinku. Jakoś to idzie, pomalutku. Ciekawie się zapowiada, jeżeli chodzi o... chociaż bardzo to pogmatwane jak dla mnie. Kto mógłby być właśnie tym mordercą tych wszystkich ludzi tutaj? No nie obstawiam jednej osoby. Takie mam wrażenie, ale obstawiam za to tego takiego młodego, który właśnie tą z panią Lawinia ona ma? Tak. Tam kręci, no. Także dzięki i do następnego. Trzymajcie się, cześć.